Good morning. We open the class of 2026 commencement exercises with an invocation offered by the Reverend Julia Barnes, Director of the Rachel Lord Center for Religious and Social Life.
Welcome. We are gathered here today to honor the class of 2026 and to witness their first steps into the next chapter of their lives. What a moment. I imagine many of us have come from a whirlwind of experiences to be here on the quad. Perhaps you've traveled thousands of miles, perhaps just a few hundred steps across campus. Maybe your coffee spilled on you. Maybe you can't figure out how your graduation cap is supposed to stay on. Whatever has transpired for you, let's take a minute to center in and open to the chance we have to be together in love and witness of the class of 2026. As we move into some time of collective quiet, choose something in our surroundings that feels grounding to you, that quiets your mind and brings you into this moment. Maybe it is the feel of the earth below your feet or the breeze on your face. Maybe it's the beating of your own heart. Whatever it is, as we enter quiet and breathe in and out together, welcome the stillness that comes. As we emerge from this quiet, take some time to notice the faces that surround you. Fellow humans connected by a shared love for these graduates. So many ages, walks of life, and stories are held in this gathered group. I imagine, too, that there are many people who are not here with us today, but who are central players in our individual stories. They may not be here for a myriad of reasons, logistics, schedules, perhaps their bodies have died. I invite you to connect with their love and care, as I imagine much of it is already here. What a symphony of support that surrounds us, seen and unseen, as we prepare to hear story and song to mark this pivot point in the lives of the class of 2026. Rites of passage, like this commencement ceremony, are an essential part of being human. There's a simple power that comes from marking changes in our lives with intention and care in the presence of community. Sometimes with big pomp and circumstance, and sometimes with simple, singular action. If, as change happens, we make space to acknowledge the chapter that is ending by letting go of pieces that no longer serve us and bringing forward those that do, we are better able to step fully and cleanly into the life in front of us. What bigger gift could our wounded world receive than these 499 graduates entering it with intention and care as the realized and resourced humans that they are, with hope and questions and a palpable care for the common good. Graduates and supporters, let's lean fully into the public witness of this commencement and also open to what personal shedding, honoring, and gleaning might support a full step into the new beginning that awaits us today. Listen now to the words that Stephen Charleston, an indigenous elder of the Choctaw Nation and an Episcopal priest, offers in his poem, Let Your Life Begin. Let your life begin again, and let it begin today. Let truth pass into you with all of its healing grace, an acknowledgement of what has been done, a door, not a cage, an invitation to a fresh start on a path already begun. Stand and walk out into the world around you, back into the broad valleys of your own heart, feeling life renewed with every step you take. You are not bound, you are not broken. You are free and you are whole. Rise on the air that streams to heaven. Put on your faith, put on your hope. Open to welcome whatever comes. For this day, your life begins again, and will each day forever. May it be so, class of 2026. May it be so.
The Star-Spangled Banner will now be performed by vocalists from the class of 2026.
Please be seated. Good morning, and what a glorious morning it is here in Brunswick. I'm Scott Perper, class of 1978, and chair of the Bowdoin College Board of Trustees. On behalf of the board, welcome to the 221st commencement of Bowdoin College. To the class of 2026, this moment is yours. You soon will be graduates of one of the most distinguished colleges in the country. Today, surrounded by these pines and by the people who love you most, we celebrate everything you've accomplished. People often describe graduation as turning the page to a new chapter. I am not sure that is the most fitting phrase. Chapters belong to the same book. Your time at Bowdoin has been its own story, distinct, formative, and complete in itself. What comes next is not simply a continuation. It is something altogether new. As you leave here, you will begin writing that next story. It will reflect your interests, your values, your energy, and your willingness to explore what you do not know yet. No two of your stories will be alike, and that's how it should be. Bowdoin has prepared you well. You leave with knowledge. You've been challenged to think critically and hopefully formed a positive perspective on how to seriously engage with the world. There's a line attributed to a Greek philosopher, Theophrastus. Time is the most valuable thing a person can spend. That thought has stayed with me over the years, and it feels especially relevant on a day like this. As you move on from Bowdoin, treasure time. Seek out experiences that expand your horizons. Have conversations with people whose lives and views differ from yours. Read deeply and broadly. Take care of your health. Make space for joy and for loss, because both are part of a life fully lived. Whether you're headed to a job, graduate school, service, or still trying to figure out what comes next, build a life not only defined by accomplishments, but by integrity, engagement, and importantly, happiness. The offer of the college expresses the hope that you leave Bowdoin with the keys of the world's library and a host of friends. That is an ambitious standard, and I genuinely hope both are true for every one of you, the friendships especially. Accomplishments matter, but the people who accompany you through life will sustain you. So, as I wish you good luck today, it is not because I think you'll need luck in the sense of finding easy success. You've already demonstrated you're capable of what you set your mind to. What I wish for you is something harder, and harder to hold on to stay curious, to be present, and to be open-minded and open-hearted in an increasingly complicated world. Class of 2026, we are proud of you, and we look forward to all of your stories. Congratulations. Bowdoin is not only the oldest college in Maine, it is older than the state itself. Maine's history is closely tied to this place, to Brunswick, and to the wider Mid-Coast community that has long been a part of the Bowdoin experience. It is therefore customary at commencement to invite a representative of the state to bring greetings to our graduates. This morning, we have the privilege of hearing from Abigail Matusovich, a member of the class of 2026 and a proud citizen of Maine, from the town of New Gloucester. A psychology major with a minor in biology, Abigail spent all 4 years at Bowdoin as a member of the women's ice hockey team and served as captain this year. She says the experience gave her lifelong friendships and taught her a great deal about herself, leadership, and the value of teamwork. Last summer, Abigail received a CXD grant that allowed her to take an unpaid internship at Maine Health, where she had the opportunity to shadow pediatricians. That experience helped her realize that her career path was in the healthcare, and after graduation, she plans to work as a psychiatric technician at Spring Harbor Hospital in Westbrook and take the classes she needs as prerequisites for nursing school. Please join me in welcoming Abigail Matisovich, who will bring greetings from the state of Maine.
Good morning, and welcome to Bowdoin College Commencement. When I was first asked to give these greetings on behalf of my home state of Maine, I found it a little ironic. To be fully transparent, when I started my college search, the only thing I knew was that I did not want to go to school in Maine. But as I visited schools in other places, none of them quite felt like home. Then I came to Bowdoin, and I immediately knew it was different. Something about it just felt right, and I suddenly forgot about my first requirement. Bowdoin has become my home in a way that I didn't fully expect, but maybe I should have, because Maine has always been my home. For those of us who have spent the last 4 years here, you probably already know that Maine is not just a place. It's an experience. It's something you feel in the air, in the way that people genuinely see you and show up for each other. For those of you who are visiting, or even here for the first time, I hope that today gives you even just a brief glimpse of what makes this place so special. Maine is often described as quiet or simple, but Mainers know that's a misunderstanding. There's a lot happening here. You just have to know where to look and slow down enough to notice it. At Bowdoin, we experienced Maine through the seasons. In the fall, it's watching the sunset at Lobster Bake with your friends after a long summer apart. In the winter, it's bundling up to walk to your morning class and learning that snow days don't exist in college. And in the spring, after months of it getting dark at 4 p.m., it's jumping in the water at Mere Point because 45 degrees suddenly feels warm. Although I've lived in Maine my whole life, being at Bowdoin has made me appreciate it in a different way. It's not just a backdrop to our education or our memories here. It's woven into who we are. The long winters taught us resilience. The beautiful days taught us gratitude. The people here taught us community. And somewhere along the way, we all became Mainers. As we gather here, I think Maine also embodies transition. A lot of what we're feeling right now, joy, uncertainty, nostalgia, and even pride, is very much in line with what being a Mainer is like. Maine doesn't rush you. It lets things unfold in their own time, and I hope that's something that we can all carry with us as we leave Bowdoin. So today, I just want to say welcome, not only to the great state of Maine, but to this moment, to the end of one chapter and the beginning of whatever comes next. I hope that when you leave here tomorrow, whether you are staying in Maine, moving to the other side of the country, or somewhere else in the world, I hope that you'll always remember how special it was to be here for these past few years and know that a part of Maine stays with you, and how you move through the world a little more patiently, a little more grounded, and a little more appreciative for the beauty around you. Thank you, and congratulations to the class of 2026.
Good morning. I'm so happy to welcome all of you, trustees, faculty, staff, honorary degree recipients, family, and friends from all over the country and the world to this celebration of the class of 2026. I want to begin by asking you to join me in thanking our incredible faculty and staff who make every day at this college possible. Over the past few days, it's been so heartwarming to see members of the class of 2026 with the people who hold them up, the people who have mattered so much on their journey to this moment. Parents, step-parents, and guardians, please stand if you're able so we can recognize you. Grandparents, please join them. Now siblings. Aunts and uncles. Cousins. Other family members I haven't yet named. Please join them as well. We're so grateful for you. I want to begin my address in a slightly unusual place for this sort of speech, my own research. The average science journal, I've heard, is read by roughly 10 people. This captive audience here today represents a massive expansion of my typical reach. So whatever happens in the next few minutes, today is already a professional triumph. I've spent my career studying how the human mind forms categories, how we take messy, continuous experience and divide it into kinds of things, kinds of situations, and kinds of problems. Graduation itself is a category-making act. It draws a line across what is otherwise continuous and says, this side is one thing, that side is another. One of the most striking findings from decades of work in this field is that our categories are not the rigid boxes we sometimes imagine them to be. They have soft edges. They're organized around inexact examples, not precise definitions. A bird is not a bird because it meets the criteria on a checklist. A bird is something that resembles other birds you've seen in some ways and not in others. A robin is more bird-like than a penguin, but both are unambiguously birds. This may sound like a small technical point. It is not. It is the source of one of the most remarkable capacities of the human mind. The ability to categorize a situation it has never encountered before by drawing on its resemblance to situations it has. I tell you this because over the past few months, many of you have shared with me a particular worry. The worry goes something like this. The path ahead is unmarked. I don't know what category my life is going to fit in. I don't recognize what I'm walking towards. I've heard versions of this question from those of you who know what your immediate next step is, a job, a graduate program, a fellowship, and from those who are embarking on a path that is not as well marked. I want to suggest, as someone who has spent a lot of time studying how minds work, that this worry is not a bug, but a feature. It's not a sign that you're behind or off track, but the condition in which minds do their best and most interesting work. Put another way, this unmarked path is not a problem. It is the project that your mind was built to walk. It is also, I would argue, the project Bowdoin was built to prepare you for. It would be easy on a day like this one to use the word extraordinary loosely, to apply it to everything in sight. So I want to use it carefully. There is something specifically extraordinary about this class and this community, and it is the very thing that from the inside you may most likely mistake for ordinary. What appears ordinary in a place like this, what is ordinary at Bowdoin, is in fact the slow building of something rare, a community in which intellectual life and personal life are not two different things. The questions a student carries into the classroom may be the same questions they carry to the dinner table, onto a trail, into a friendship, into a life. That integration of the intellectual and the personal is one of the great gifts of a liberal arts education. It's also one of its most consequential. Another practice that seems ordinary, but is far from that, is the way you show up for each other. And I don't mean this sentimentally. I mean it as a description of practice. The way you want to know each other's stories, the way you cheer your friends on in public places like sidelines and audiences, and in less visible and quieter moments as well. Paying close, sustained attention to people, making a habit of treating their hard moments as worthy of your time, to be invested in their flourishing. These are not the capacities that are distributed equally. They are not givens, they're not ordinary. They are capacities that require practice, and you have practiced them together in this place for the past 4 years. These are exactly the capacities that the unmarked path asks of you. Your mind was built to walk it, and you have spent 4 years building relationships and habits that will shape that journey. It is true, and perhaps an understatement, to say that you're not graduating in simple times. The path ahead is not only unmarked. In some directions, it's genuinely unsettled. The important thing is that you do not have to walk that path alone. One of my very favorite things about Bowdoin students is the way that I see you accompanying each other along your sometimes parallel and sometimes diverging paths. This community believes in you, in your ability to navigate these steps with purpose and possibility. This belief is not a leap of faith. It is grounded in what we've seen you do. As you leave, I know you will continue to walk your path with the friends you've made here. You'll walk it with your family, with people from the past who are no longer with you, and with friends you do not yet know. I also hope you'll walk it with curiosity and with a sense of humor, with a feeling that comes with finally understanding an impossible math problem, with the memory of a surprising moment of laughter you shared with someone, with the company of poetry that you perhaps first encountered in a classroom here. 100 years ago, at the graduation of the class of 1926, Bowdoin gave an honorary degree to poet Robert Frost, perhaps best known for his poem, The Road Not Taken. Frost had spent several weeks the previous year at Bowdoin's Institute of Modern Literature. At Bowdoin, Frost had given a talk advocating for the importance of having many writers on campus because, he said, writers ask undergraduates the ultimate question: what are you going to do about life? What are you going to do about life is, in a sense, the ultimate categorization question. I know that right now the question might feel particularly urgent, but I hope you'll ask it of yourselves, not only at the obvious transitions, but in the quieter stretches in between. When you do, I hope that you draw on everything that you've practiced here, and that you will continue to walk together, and that you will remember that your mind was built to answer it. To the class of 2026, please accept our congratulations. Take with you our very best wishes, our deep pride in your accomplishments, and our faith in your ability to live lives of meaning and joy. And please come back and visit. This place is yours forever. Thank you. It is now now my great pleasure to introduce the first of our student speakers and the recipient of this year's Class of 1868 prize, Kaia Patel. Kaia is a neuroscience major and chemistry minor from Morristown, New Jersey. What has impressed me about Kaia is the way she has brought both depth and breadth to her time at Bowdoin. She is at once a rigorous scientist, a thoughtful storyteller, an advocate, a dancer, and a leader. In Professor Jen Honeycutt's lab, where Kaia has worked for 3 years, her honors project examines how early life stress and ketamine treatment shape the brain, work that required her to develop a new protocol from the ground up. As a sophomore, she earned a National Science Foundation Award to conduct independent research at the University of Connecticut School of Pharmacy. That scientific work has unfolded alongside an equally serious commitment to the world beyond the lab. Kaia has worked for the Bowdoin Orient throughout her 4 years here, telling stories that might otherwise have gone unnoticed and building connections across the college and the Brunswick community. She helped lead Bowdoin's chapter of Active Minds, a national nonprofit focused on mental health awareness, and held a leadership role with Bowdoin Women in Science. She's also choreographed for the South Asian Student Association dance performances. In the fall, Kaia will begin a PhD program in neuroscience at the University of Michigan. Her address today is called A Story Described by Many Titles. Please join me in welcoming Kaia Patel.
Members of the college, and guests. Many of you know me as a member of your class council, an editor of the Bowdoin Orient, or even as that girl that studies ketamine. Don't worry, it was for therapeutic purposes. However, something that few people know is that I've given a title to every single day of my Bowdoin College experience. Titles can range from little anecdotes that made me smile to the most important part of my day. For example, March 16th, 2026 was Curse My Genetically Weak Gums. We'll come back to this point in a second. I started the titles as a way to catch up with a high school friend, but this daily routine turned into one of the most meaningful practices in my life. Over spring break, as I recovered from gum surgery, hence the example title, I felt quite restless being unable to move my mouth all day. This really forced me to sit with my thoughts, something that I'm notoriously bad at. With graduation looming in the distance, a lot of these thoughts were centered around the future, and to avoid them, I grounded myself in the past. For the first time, I read through my old titles, one by one, from the beginning. In some ways, it felt as if no time had passed since I reluctantly hugged my parents goodbye, wiping tears as I entered Farley Fieldhouse. Yet, I no longer recognized that version of myself. I looked back with perspective and clarity on moments that at the time felt so sweeping. Reading the titles was like rifling through a flipbook of the scenes that shaped me. In the early days, everything was so new and exciting. From titles like The Crazy Life of a First Year During Orientation to nothing like a 6-hour lab on a beautiful Maine coast day, I was in awe of college life and this place I was learning to call home. But in my first year, I also wrote titles like Navigating My New Normal, which reflected the overwhelm, anxiety, and excitement of starting college. Over time, my titles featured the same people, patterns, and reflections, yet the way in which I wrote about my days changed. What changed is that I became the author of my own story instead of a passive observer. During sophomore year, I wrote Making This Place Feel Like Home as I unloaded my things into Macmillan House. By April, I added, today is going to be a good day because I say it is. And by senior year, I even asserted, this is how to live. The evolution of my titles reflected my growing agency and security in who I was. I recently learned about the concept of sonder, a term coined by John Canning in the Dictionary of Obscure Sorrows. Sonder is the concept that each random passerby has their own vivid life, filled with their own ambitions, friends, routines, and even worries. It's the realization that all of us have developed our own complex and distinct lives at Bowdoin, but have weaved in and out of each other's, maybe without even realizing it. In that moment, I recognized that it was you, my fellow authors, each writing your own stories, that fostered both mine and our collective growth. In February 2023, I wrote, it's negative 41 degrees, but I'm warmed by the people around me. And that April, get yourself some friends that would search for you all across campus because you weren't home by 1 a.m. I found those friends, and I hope you have too. Through my titles, I saw what mattered most throughout the last 4 years. It was the meals with friends and the late night talks in the living room. It was when I decided to do something spontaneous just because a friend asked me to. It was the laugh that I shared with someone I just met. And while you may not have titled your days, you too have all had these moments that have made up mine. You have become the author of your own unique story. You transitioned from being overwhelmed by college to shaping the institution. And you all played an important role in each other's stories as well. I'll leave you with the question, what title would you give to some of your most meaningful days at Bowdoin? What title would you give to today? I now know, standing here, that mine will be, Thank You, Bowdoin. Congrats to the class of 2026.
It is now my great pleasure to introduce the recipient of this year's Goodwin Commencement Prize, Dickinson Lewis. Dickinson is a double major in economics and government and legal studies with a minor in philosophy from Tarrytown, New York. I've come to admire the way that Dickinson builds connections, communities, and a sense of belonging in places where they were not waiting for him. That work of building has taken many forms at Bowdoin. He has served as president of the Black Student Union, as event coordinator for SOCA, the Student Organization for Caribbean Alliance, and as president of the Bowdoin Alliance for Immigrant Rights. As manager and DJ host on WBOR 91.1 FM, his program Get Jicky With It continued work he began in high school, exploring questions of race and identity through music. He's also a Geoffrey Canada Scholar. Early in his time here, Dickinson made a habit of inviting people he did not yet know to share a meal. One lunch, one dinner at a time, he built community around those tables and came to understand that belonging is not only something you find, but something you create. That same spirit has shaped his academic life. He speaks about taking intellectual risks, about registering for courses in unexpected fields. A course called Literary Theory, he says, gave him a new lens for thinking about power, identity, and meaning. After graduation, Dickinson plans to work at the intersection of law and economic development, building opportunity in communities that have been historically overlooked. His address today is called What We Carry Forward. Please join me in welcoming Dickinson.
It does feel weird being up here, I'm not gonna lie. President Zaki, members of the college, and guests. We all arrived at Bowdoin, where sunshine cut through the pines by Rue, where history hummed from every corner and crevice of campus, for good and for bad. When I first arrived at Bowdoin, I didn't just carry bags. I carried a question, probably the same one that each and every one of you carried as well. What does it mean to belong here? For me, I brought the quiet awareness that I was entering a place not originally built for someone who looked like me. Being here meant proving something, whether I wanted to or not. I learned soon after what it meant to navigate spaces where you are both seen and unseen simultaneously. I was not the first to arrive here and grapple with that knowledge. Nearly 200 years ago, in 1826, a young black man named John Brown Russworm walked onto this very campus. He would become the first black graduate of the college. What was Bowdoin like for him, though? Russworm charted his own path through what was then a very white academic world. But his independent projects were about three heroes of the Haitian Revolution and founders of this world's first black republic. Toussaint Louverture, Henri Christophe, and Jean-Jacques Dessalines. Russworm was here in Maine at Bowdoin, but at the same time, he dreamed of something bigger. Dignity, freedom, and infinite possibility were lessons that could extend far beyond the boundaries of this campus. Russworm believed in that possibility so deeply that he looked beyond this campus at his own commencement and towards Haiti, a nation born out of revolution and a testament that the world can be changed, even by those who, in accordance with a long-lived racist colonial logic, were never meant to exist within, let alone reshape it. I relate to this personally. My grandmother never learned how to read or write, but she did not let that stop her from enrolling my father into school anyway. That was her revolution. That was her IET. She embodied a family truth. That possibility is not something we wait for. It's something we build with our very minds and our hands. 2 generations later, I strive to carry on that tradition. In my classes here, I've learned a great deal about how institutions work, but also that there's more to these theoretical concepts than just theory. Theories are meant to be applied. For me, this application began taking shape outside of the classroom, especially with my peers in the Black Student Union. I found theory turning into practice with the people whose late-night conversations stretched longer than they should. These were spaces where I didn't have to explain myself to be understood. Russworm was the only black student in his class. Imagine. That is not the case for us. Thank you, Lord. All of us have big dreams, and we strive to make them real. In fact, we are the continuation of dreams that once sounded too distant to even believe. But it has not always been joy for me or for any one of you. Our community is also built on the moments that break you open. During our first semester, we lost our dear friend, Omar Osman. And grief has a way of disrupting everything. Our routines, our plans, and even our sense of time. It unveils a curtain that lets you see deeply into what is real. The people who dedicate their time to you in this world where life is oh so fleeting. Grief taught me something that no classroom could, that showing up is its own form of testimony. We all continue to show up, not because it was easy, but because inaction was impossible. Russ Worm did not leave this campus looking toward Haiti because there was a clear path to greater freedom. It was because his belief was strong. His belief in that freedom was stronger than his uncertainty. My parents didn't cross oceans because the destination was guaranteed. They moved because remaining stagnant was never the point. I leave campus today with the people we have become in pursuit of our degrees, the friendships we formed at O-Trips, the professors who saw something in us before we saw it ourselves, and the losses that quietly shaped us. We are graduating at a time when people's voices are asked to be smaller and quieter. Yes, there is a notion, once again, that our place should be questioned. Yet the truth is, we were never meant to be small. None of us. We're not graduating into a particularly welcoming world, but still, we will build. We will make ourselves impossible to ignore. This is our inheritance. Class of 2026, we were never just students here. We have been proof that this place can evolve and expand. I came here with the question of belonging. I leave with the people who made that answer obvious. Whatever brought you here, whatever you had to prove, to your family, to this institution, to yourself, you have proved it. And now, moving ahead, the responsibility is on us. Possibility is not something that we wait for. It's something we are. We build it. We will not wait for belonging. We will claim it together. Félicitations. Congratulations. Feli réalité. Make it a reality. Thank you.
Omar Osman, a member of the class of 2026 from Lewiston, Maine, died in December of his first year at Bowdoin. His time with us was far too short, but he left a deep impression on those who knew him. Omar was a first-generation American and a first-generation college student, a Questbridge Scholar and a Jeffrey Canada Scholar, and an active participant in the Thrive program. At Lewiston High School, he had been deeply engaged in his community, serving in student government, participating in Model United Nations and the Youth Advisory Council, and helping to lead efforts focused on equity and inclusion. At Bowdoin, he had already developed a strong interest in computer science and information technology. His roommates remember a smile that welcomed everyone he met. Those who knew Omar may also remember the kind of person he hoped to become. In his own words, "I want to be someone anyone and everyone can rely on and can know that I will always be there to help." He was, by all accounts, that person. As we celebrate this class today, we also remember one of its members, Omar with affection and with sorrow. We hold his parents, his sister, his loved ones, classmates, and friends closely in our thoughts. It is now my honor to invite Professor Michael Colster, who served as Omar's first-year advisor, to come forward to accept a degree in memoriam for Omar Osman, who will always be part of the Bowdoin class of 2026.
President Zaki, the President and the Board of Trustees have voted 3 honorary degrees to be awarded in accordance with the authority vested in you by the Board. As Chair of the Board of Trustees, I have the honor to present for the degree of Doctor of Humane Letters, Sharon Daly.
Sharon Leckby Daly, by virtue of the authority vested in me by the Board of Trustees, I now confer upon you the degree of Doctor of Humane Letters, honoris causa.
Sharon Daly, for more than 2 decades, you brought healthcare, comfort, and trust to Maine's island communities. As Director of Island Health and nurse aboard Maine Seacoast Mission's service boat, the Sunbeam, you worked tirelessly to bring health care to some of Maine's most hard-to-reach communities. You traveled on the Sunbeam, by lobster boat, pickup truck, golf cart, and foot to see your patients. When you got to them, you listened. You set aside preconceived notions and let the islanders tell you what they most needed. Then, time after time, you rose to meet those needs. You provided primary care, lab work, vaccinations, behavioral health care and addiction services, nutritional support, and hospice care. You connected islanders to mainland hospitals, clinics, and specialists via telehealth long before it became common practice. When the COVID-19 pandemic struck, you drew attention to the unique vulnerabilities of the islanders, advocating for enough vaccines to protect the entire community. Recognizing the needs of older islanders, you founded the Island Elder Care Network to ensure that they have the knowledge and support necessary to age in the places they call home. Your work, though, was never just about delivering services. It was about building relationships. It was about treating people with dignity, respect, and genuine care. In private conversations, in everyday encounters, you created the conditions under which proud people could ask for help. You became the person islanders turned to when they had nowhere else to turn. In all of this, you created something durable, a form of healthcare rooted in place, sustained by relationship, and responsive to the evolving needs of the community. For what you made possible across Maine's island communities, Bowdoin is proud to confer upon you the degree of Doctor of Humane Letters, honoris causa.
As chair of the Board of Trustees, I have the honor to present for the degree of Doctor of Humane Letters, Evan Gerskovich.
Evan Gerskovich, author, journalist, alumnus, and friend of Bowdoin College. Welcome home. Almost exactly 12 years ago today, you stood here under the bright Bowdoin sun to receive your undergraduate degree. And now, in what must be evoking a strange sense of deja vu, you stand here yet again to receive another. In between, you've launched an acclaimed career in journalism, working at the New York Times, the Moscow Times, AFP, and the Wall Street Journal. You moved to Russia, where you reported on COVID-era lockdowns, the erosion of civil liberties and press freedom, and as one of the only Western journalists reporting from inside the country on Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Such courage has long been a hallmark of your journalism. For one dispatch in 2021, you spent 4 days in a tent amidst Siberian wildfires. When the coronavirus pandemic flared, you roamed overcrowded hospital wards around Moscow, interviewing exhausted ambulance drivers and first-year medical students pressed into service as doctors. Empathy has been at the core of your work, whether reporting on migrant workers in makeshift camps in Dagestan, an epidemic of loneliness among Russia's elderly, or the plight of the country's trans community. In your writing, you've often shone a light on the stories of ordinary people caught up in the machinery of a repressive state. Then, on March 29th, 2023, you too became caught up in that machinery. While in the Ural Mountains to report on workers at a weapons factory, you were tackled by Russian security agents and thrown into the back of an unmarked van. After spending more than a year in prison, you were sentenced to 16 years in a labor camp. 2 weeks later, thanks in part to the tireless advocacy of your family, your friends, and your colleagues at the Wall Street Journal, you were freed as part of one of the most complex prisoner exchanges in history. Today, you stand before us as a reminder of the power and privilege of a free and independent press. As the autocrats and would-be autocrats of the world seek to intimidate and control the media, you have dedicated yourself to finding and reporting the truth, even when, and perhaps especially when, this truth poses a threat to the powerful. In this, you join a distinguished tradition. In the words of Soviet writer and dissident Alexander Solzhenitsyn, a former prisoner of the same jail where you were held, quote, "One word of truth shall outweigh the whole world." For your words of truth and for the weight they have carried and are yet to carry, thank you. President Zaki, on behalf of the college, I am honored to present Evan Gerskovich for the degree of Doctor of Humane Letters, honoris causa.
I'm gonna work through this. Evan Gerskovich, by virtue of the authority vested in me by the Board of Trustees, I now confer upon you the degree of Doctor of Humane Letters, honoris causa.
As chair of the Board of Trustees, I have the honor to present for the degree of Doctor of Humane Letters, Dr. Cecilia Rouse.
Cecilia Elaine Rouse, economist, dean, leader, and public servant. You have spent your career asking and answering some of the most consequential questions facing our society, including how we should understand the role that education plays in our lives, and how can we measure the extent of racial and gender discrimination in the labor market. Your academic work has fundamentally advanced our understanding of the relationship among education, work, and opportunity in the United States. Your research has brought analytic precision to fundamental questions of how to provide higher quality education to underserved communities. In all of it, you are never content to simply measure, but rather your work pushes beyond the numbers to how public policy can be harnessed to make things better. After a distinguishing career in research and teaching, including many years on the faculty of Princeton University, you have advanced the economics of education and championed making the field of economics a more welcoming place for women and scholars from underrepresented groups. As the Dean of Princeton School of Public and International Affairs, you strengthened its role as a place where rigorous scholarship informs public policy, preparing students to move with confidence between policy and practice, between analysis and action. Your work in public service included what you yourself characterize as 3 White House tours. The use of the word tour, commonly used for military tours of duty, is not lost on us. Your most recent White House tour, from March 2021 to March 2023, you served as the chair of the Council of Economic Advisors, guiding national economic policy during that crucial period of profound uncertainty caused by economic and social fallout of COVID-19 pandemic. Drawing on deep expertise and disciplined judgment of an economist, you brought clarity to complex decisions and ensured that policy remained grounded in evidence while attentive to the realities it sought to address. Your leadership in these roles reflects not only intellectual authority, but a sustained commitment to the common good. Now, as president of the Brookings Institution, you lead one of the nation's foremost centers for independent, nonpartisan research. You guide a community of scholars whose analysis informs policy and contributes to the decisions that define economic and public life in the United States and beyond. An economist whose work has deepened our understanding of economic opportunity. A public servant who has shaped policy with care and rigor, and a leader whose influence extends across institutions and generations. You continue to work tirelessly to move us to a better version of our collective selves. President Zaki, on behalf of the college, I present Cecilia Elena Rouse for the degree of Doctor of Humane Letters, honoris causa.
Cecilia Elena Rouse, by virtue of the authority vested in me by the Board of Trustees, I now confer upon you the degree of Doctor of Humane Letters, honoris causa. It is our tradition that the president of the senior class offers remarks at commencement. It is my pleasure to introduce Timothy Ignacio from Honolulu, Hawaii. Timmy is a biochemistry major and a gender, sexuality, and women's studies minor. He says that GSWS and dance courses gave him a set of critical lenses, including the philosophy of Ubuntu, I am because we are, that will carry him through through life. That same spirit has animated his artistic life at Bowdoin, and what an artistic life he's led, which has spanned an impressive range. He has been the concert master, the principal violinist of the Bowdoin Symphony Orchestra, and when he auditioned for the Cowboys, Bowdoin's student-led hip-hop dance group, as a sophomore, he'd never danced before. Within 2 years, he was the team's captain and choreographer, building the work as well as performing it. He's also been the vibes officer of the Philippine Society. Each of his roles has demanded an exacting precision, many people landing together on the same beat. Please join me in welcoming the president of the class of 2026, Timmy Ignacio.
Good morning, Bowdoin. Aloha. Oh, come on, we can do better than that. Aloha. Thank you. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Timmy, and I've had the honor and the privilege of serving as the class of 2026 president for the past 3 years. When I first came to Bowdoin, I thought I had my life completely planned out. I was pre-med, I still am, but I was going to double major in biochemistry and government. You know, just in case 4 years down my surgical residency, I decided I wanted to go to law school. I was going to survive the cold for 4 more years and apply straight into medical school. That is how I was wired. That is how I was taught to understand success. But Bowdoin completely changed that mindset. My time at Bowdoin taught me that life is not just about achievement. It's also about balance, community, expression, and joy. For me, this lesson came when I found dance. My sophomore year, I auditioned for this fun little hip-hop group, which you may know on this campus, called the Bowdoin Cowboys, with no dance experience. And now, having passed the torch to my beautiful co-captain and co-choreographer, Fernanda, I can definitely say that I found a passion that I will pursue for the rest of my life. Finding dance taught me that joy is not frivolous. In a world that constantly pushes us toward burnout, competition, productivity, our joy becomes a form of active resistance. Allowing yourself to laugh with your friends, to move freely throughout this world, to celebrate one another, to make time for the things that you love, to rest, those choices matter. Through dance, I found a grounded practice. I found confidence. I found a version of myself that cared less about performing perfection and more about living fully. But most of all, I found a family. So today, I want to thank the Cowboys, past, present, and future, my amazing, amazing friends, my professors, the dining hall and cafe workers, and my beautiful, beautiful family for helping make Bowdoin a place where I could grow into the person that I am today. Graduates, I hope wherever life takes us next, we remember that success means very little if we lose ourselves along the way. I hope we continue choosing joy. I hope we continue choosing community. And I hope that we continue to choose each other. Mahalo nui loa, class of 2026. Congratulations.
All seniors, please rise. Honored colleague, these young people whom the faculty deem worthy of the first degree in arts, I now present to you so that if you so direct, I may admit them to that degree. Is this your will?
It is.
By virtue of the authority vested in me, I now admit you to the first degree of arts and do grant and confer upon you all the rights, privileges, honors, and dignities pertaining to that degree. Being so admitted, you may now receive these diplomas.
Gwendolyn Wenji Francis Abbott. Nasra Idris Abdirahman. Kira Sahale Ackerman. Tomilola Adebambo Adegoke. Yasmin Athen. Charbel Ilam Ajoble. Luciano Agudelo. Eva On. Abigail Emma Ainley. Alex Richard Ainsworth. Abigail Alvarado. Robeson Wellborn Amory. Brett Eric Anderson. Chase Conant Richard Anderson. Charles Thomas Apolinski. Elena Teresa Ardell. Isabella L. Ardell. Javi Atsidi. Christopher Joseph Afaro. Victoria Channing Bacall. Michael Cox Bagnoli. Noah Elias Baldwin. Neil Anakin Bam in absentia. Clementine Eugenia Davis Bannon. Jack Hayden Barnard. Olivia Grace Barrett. Miles Kazuo Bartlett. Theodore Boyce Barton. Joanna Lee Bateman. Andrea Isabel Becker. Maria Christine Bellardi. Maya Esther Benali. Miles Wellstone Benson. Caroline Elizabeth Burney. Lillian Therese Bernard. Anthony Bernier Jr. Dylan Carl Burr. Nolan Samuel Sachter Basire. Divya Bergava. Ava Pepper Biasotti. Kira Delaney Bishop. Yasmin Biashev. Carlos Ramon Blanco Vasquez in absentia. Alexander Jack Bloom. Tommy Robert Boehner. Douglas Bogle. Elizabeth McKay Balmer. Mila Lorita Bonometti. Will John Bordis. Ritvik Bordia. Samuel George Bourne. Samuel Morduk Borovoy. Elizabeth Marie Bouchard. Carolina Bliss Bragg. Julian Edwin Braun. Luciano Alfio Brex. Jack Lawrence Brookman. Duncan Brown. Ian Simon Brown. Oliver Shyla Bruce. Chinwe Bruns. Nathan John Bukowski Thal. Courtney Burnett. Emma Jean Butterfield. Alexander Chase Byrne. Colin Gray Campbell. Emily Bryn Campbell. Alessandro Benedetto Corelli. Zachary Christian Carlson. Colette Amelia Carrillo. Carolyn T. Casey. James Daniel Sarapak. Callista Gabrielle Chacon. Riley William Chow Beerhouse. Anna Chen. Claire Chen. Kevin Chen. Renqing Chen. Emma Kuhn Chung. Elizabeth Molesky. Anika Chaudhary. Stephanie Sue Christensen. Ella Tingyi Chu. Nicholas Daji Chu de Cristofaro. Oliver Isaac Clacko. Patrick Laverne Clark. Charlotte Lucia Kaplan Clements. Lily Abigail Clifford. Paul Ezekiel Klusky Jr. Rebecca Kylander Cody. Yahiri Collin. Alexa Rose Comas. Ben Conover. Paul Joseph Conti. Amanda Marie Cooney. Mackenzie Mitchell Cooper. Andrea Hatsiri Cordova Cisneros. Sarah Somerville Coughlin. Daniel Talbot Cortine. Caitlin Giselle Cowan. Nicole Carolyn Craighead. Colin Everett Cruz. Emma Lily Crum. Edwin Antonio Cruz Castillo. Sophie Marie Cullen. Isabella Cunha. Madeline Ann Current. Lily Wu Curtis. Avery Jordan Cutler. Ethan Christopher Danielson. Isa Afan Dar. Kevin Ajamin Darko. Carly Jane Davey. Alexa Elaine Abbott Davis. Angel Peter Del Valle Cardenas. Juan Diego Del Prado. Kane Harrison Demers. Ava Grace D'Souza. Francisco Jose Diaz Sena. Anthony Michael DiChiara. Julia Kelly Dickinson. Elena Noel DiMagno. Andrea Antiona Di Teodoro. Henry Stephen Dorr. James Patrick Duty III. James Patrick Duncan. Ashton Ellick Dunlap. Nayeli Guadalupe Duran. Lily Isabel Echeverria. Ethan Mucci Exedy. Cameron Hong Edgar. Justine Yoshiko Endo Ferguson. Catalina Escobedo. Magdalena Louise Escudero Kane. Athalia Esti. Anika Isabel Evert. Adam Robert Ewing. Ellie O'Neill Fabro. George Thomas Fahey. Natalie Ann Fales. Nina Elizabeth Theron. Victor Tejeda Souza. Ella Lane Ferrucci. Matthew Carlos Fierro. Victoria Grace Figueroa. Peter Warren Flannery. John Adair Fletcher. Sophia Madeline Fogg. Liam Podrick Foley. Harrison Connor Forland. Nico James Fortier. Thetis Forley. Chrisella Margarita Francis. Mariella Francois. Starlet Begonia Franklin. Joe Hart French. John Connor Froling. David Ronaldo D. Fuentes. Ruby Clara Fife. Catherine Ann Gage. Fiona Gallagher. Tony Gao. Chloe Angel Garcia. Daphne Yohedi Garcia. Jake Steele Gaylord. Jamie Dowling Gibbons. Matthias John Henry Gibbons. Hunter Colin Gibson. Kira Hedges Gilbert. Krishna Goenka. Hannah Risa Gold in absentia. Eliana Rosalind Gonzalez. Kiana Lise Gonzalez. Miles Francis Goodell. Jacob Matthew Goodman. Everett B. Gordon. Jonathan Edward Ryan Gordon. Joseph Lucas Gordon. Alexander Michael Guthrow. William Yue Graff. Maya Lee Grant. Evan James Grower. Moana Sophie Gregory. Cedar Rose Greevy. Jory Grialou. Allison Finley Griswold. Suhas Gudaro. Anna Gutoff. Laura Gutierrez Camaño. Noemi Priscilla Guzman. Kira Elizabeth Hacker. Brianna Michelle Hall. Alex S. Halpern. Evie Isabella Hamer. Nikki Harris. June Warren Hartman. Fele Jabril Hassan. Kirsten Noel Hayes. Phoebe Flynn Heaps. Daniel Hennelly. Miriam Hernandez. Cordelia Louise Howe Heyman. Margaret Sarah Higgins. Jaden Amari Hill. Dana Caroline Hillebrecht. Eleanor Bernice Hoff. Anthony Tyler Hawley. Hunter Hong. Skylar Hong. Eden Ruth Horton. Tyler Huck. Kara Isabella Hung. Brianna Michelle Hurd. William Callender Hurt IV. Emmett Robert Hines. Charlotte Grace Iannone. Timothy O. Ignacio. Mia Sachiko Imaeda. Ava Nicole Impazamato. Eric Infante. Mitch Ashimwe. Brando Horacio Izquierdo. Lillian Eva Janice. Victoria Zhang. Julie Emma Puk Johnson. Meadow Jasmine Moon Jennings. Sergiani Linda Jennings. Rain S. Yokas in absentia. Ben Blagden Johnson. Logan Walter Johnson. Delaney Elizabeth Jones. Sarah Malemba Kalanji. Subi Kalra. Marley Kamen. Mingi Kang. Gisa Karamaga. Mira Karande. Maya Victoria Carlson. Rithmika Ravija Karanadara. Punawit Kithian. Rafiq Kassam Jawani. Georgia Baron Katkov. Sabrina Jing Kearney. Kylie Elizabeth Keating. Troy Gentry Keller. Nathan Joseph Kellerman. Jackson Gimon Kendall. Alexis Kim. Jayon J. Kim. Owen Daniel Kirkpatrick. Mark Peter Niss in absentia. Sam Autumn Kegler. Phoebe Whitman Kolf. Ingrid Elmsley Krishnan. Alexandra Victoria Cruz. Kayla Adrian Colsey. Prethit Krupp. Anya Rose Lawani. Erin Kaylee Lamping. Danielle Marie Lancaster. Beckett LaPrade. Anders Reeve Larson. Tyler Sweet Larson. Wing Q Lau. Juyun Lee. Paulina Lee. Pen Lee. Alona Lemasheva. Chase Thompson Lank. Tyler Campbell Lank. Will Lesko. Kase Lin. Lulu Chadwick Linkus. Zelly Blue Lippman. Ava Carlisle Liversich. Will Logue. Naomi Lopez. Grace Lott. Dickinson Victor Lewis. Lissy Liu. Graham Frederick Lucas. Connor Michael Luval. Aiden Anthony Lyons. Estefania Madrid Romero. Sophie Reese McGuire. RJ Maldonado. Phoebe Lynn Marin. Abigail Elise Martin. Mark Roman Mateo. Abigail Ann Matasovich. Emma Simone Maslish. Alvin Raphael McBurrow Jr. Rashay Geneva McDonald. Courtney Paige McKenna. Luca Edward McCurley Coronado. Eva Isabel McCone. Riley Corinne McLaren. Eli Leventhal Mears. Ravi Sujay Mehta. Andrew William Mendelson. Celeste Mary Rose Mercier. Emma Brody Merrill. Jules Maxwell Massetti. Alex J. Min Miller. Florence Julia Malay. Shivali Mishra. Mina Catherine Mittler. Willie James Mobley IV. Neiman McCombie. Tess. Hannah Todvin Mooney. Annie Virginia Moore. Shihab Shohan Moral. Evan Michael Morales. Ashley Bridget Morash. Ainsley Ellen Morrison. Sydney Elizabeth Morrison. Alexandra Elizabeth Morton. Andrew Harrison Mott. Logan Jacob Mulcairn. Kavya Janake Muntkor. Olemj Munkter. Felipe Nascimento. Alina Farzana Nasruddin. Patrick Andrew Neal Jr. James Edward Netherton. Sophia Stella Nichols. Oreli Nishime. Thaddeus Augustus Noble. Michael Parker Norton. Kanenechukwu Ellen Hannah Josephine Wokeji. Gabriel Sean O'Brien. Katie Kimiko O'Connell. Adam Grant O'Connor. Lauren Allison O'Donnell. Will Odanaka Onubogu. Alexander Hayes Ordentlick. Thomas Buckland Owen. Matteo Lorenzo Pacelli. Iran Yamile Pacheco Martinez. Caleb Stopford Packard. Michelle Alejandra Padilla Soto. Esther Jin Pack. Nicholas Pangan. Caitlin Lydia Paniker. Jigger M. Perayawan. Kaia Patel. Maxwell Mars Payne. Yujin Ueda Puchun. Kyle Dow Pellerin. John Walter Penzar. Henry Peter Penfold. Natalie Peralta. Luciana Isabel Perdomo. Elizabeth Perrott. Ella Nicole Perry. Leerin Grace Peterson. Dylan Charles Petrillo. Kira Kate Phelan. Caitlin Marie Phillips. Sophia Gabriella Perschlaw. Slade William Postemski. Ada Ivory Potter. Sam Harrison Prangley. Oliver Davis Prin. Ana Lucia Pumiali. Abigail Elisa Ramirez. Emma Lou Randall Gerard. Gianna Carolina Rendazzo. Shumaim Rashid. Camila Esperanza Gil Rawlings. Samuel Ray Steiner. Grace Raymond. Anthony Garrett Reed. Kevin Wiley Reeves. Liliana M. Restrepo. Iris Gabriela Reyes. Thomas Stewart Reynolds. Libby Anna Riggs. Edwin Rivera. Isabel Rivera Gangdrum. Luke Wesley Robinson. Robert Stephen Rodolakis. Amelia King Rose. Atticus Finn Rosen. Rohan Aaron Elijah Rosen. Nellie Werngren Ross. Alec Edward Rothkowitz. Henry Theodore Rovillard Jr. Felipe Rueda Duran. Carlos James Ruiz. Enrique David Ruiz. Camille Lauren Russler. Haley Francis Ryan. Alex Campbell Saavedra. Benjamin Isaac Sachs. Evelyn Willa Safar in absentia. Sebastian Robert Strauss Solman. Amadou Clador Saul. Ellen Coeca Salavara. Kevin John Sandor Jr. Asher Thomas Savell. Leah Zhao Charnow. Shivani Rose Schmulin. Luke Goodyear Schramm. John Anderson Schubert. Annika Sen. Charan Shangun. Gabriela Alessandra Sennett. Young Su. Avital N. Serlin. Chloe Keo Sheehan. Megan McClellan Sheehan. Aiden Dean Sheeran Hanel. Lily Shelley Kodroff. Gabriel Ronald Shipper. Severn Claire Sienkiewicz. Becca Suarez Silva. Mateo Anthony Silva. Anaya Imane Simmons. Riley May Simon. Aryan Chua Singh. Amaya Smith. Logan Daniel Smith. Sam Adams Smith. Shep S. Salamini. Beatriz Solis. Lars Huck Sorum. Cassie Lynn Soul. Ciara Lynn Soul. Gus Henry Spradlin. Amir Isabel Augustine St. George. Sky Eudice Stas in absentia. Anastasia Amaya Stallworth. Julia Erica Stark. Ivy Stevens. Samantha Casey Stevenson. Catherine Audrey Stoma. Rachel Margaret Story. Christian Matthew Sullivan. Jake Duar Sullivan. Patrick Burke Sullivan. Patrick F. Sullivan. Anyi Sun. Edward Shu Sun. Paul Surkov. Michael William Sweeney. Andrew George Chuez. Charlotte Tagupa. Mick Che Tamus. Ayla Ariana Taylor. Jeremy Dante Tuori. Blythe Carlson Thompson. Dazelle K. Thompson. Alexandra Rose Tiger. Francis Geisler Trafton. Andrew Tran. New Me Anna Tran. Jack Thomas Swan Tran. Will Olmsted Tran. Eric Samuel Traub. Lucas Christopher Chai. Isabel Maile Suchitori. Nisi Celeste Duitipo. Samuel Eugene Michael Turagano. Amelia Sarah Tutin. Catherine Chiazam Uwakwe. Pranav Vadlamudi. Anne Patricia Vasquez. Theodore Peter Veru. Mariana Regina Vidauri. Nicholas Mark Vescusi. Hanako Marie Walker. Elizabeth Daly Walsh. Daniel Wang. Eric Wong. Darcy Elliott Weber. Benjamin David Weintraub. Julia Stetson Werner. Amelia Irene Wheatley Suarez. Maximilian Sebastian Vigand. Madeline Grace Wilkin. Annabella Noel Williams. Piper Lynn Wilson. Thomas Daniel Graney Wilson. Alexander Moffett Wiseman. Colin James Wojciechowski. Seamus Michael Woodruff. Eiley Woods. Justin Patrick Wright. Julia Shengwang. Anna Julia Yang. Preston Guthrie Yates. Mei Yuan. Mina Jasmine Zangane. Daniela Giselle Zaraga. Dana Zhao. Mariana Sophia Zingoni. Eden Waylon Zumbram.
Please join me in congratulating Bowdoin's newest graduates with a round of applause. Thank you. And I hope everyone here today will join us for a celebratory lunch immediately following today's commencement ceremony and recessional march. The luncheon will be held in Farley Field House, which is about a 10-minute walk from here, and our shuttle and golf cart volunteers are happy to provide rides to and from the luncheon. I now invite vocalists from the class of 2026 to come forward to lead us all in the singing of the alma mater. Audience, please stand if you're able. You will find the words on the last page of the program.
Will guests please remain in their seats until the recessional march has passed? The 221st commencement of Bowdoin College has now concluded.